Hi, you're welcome back. I think it was Albert Einstein said the definition of an idiot was someone who continually did the same experiment and getting the same negative result and hope to do it again, hoping to get a different result next time. But William Shakespeare chose Denmark for the setting for his epic play Hamlet. And the young Hamlet growing up originally thought everything was grand in his country, and then he began to suspect that his uncle had killed his father in order to get the throne, and so began the play. In Denmark you have Jutland up here on the top. This is just a piece of wood to keep the clips secure, and you have the rest of the country. So Denmark tells us two things. It tells us about the long-term, large-scale use of wind generation, and it tells us also about interconnection and how useful it is. Our esteemed President Mary McAleese, who's the President till the end of 2011, and US President Barack Obama both sang the praises of Denmark because they were given a particular story, but we're going to examine that now. The island of Sams in Denmark is said in the media to be self-sufficient in energy. That's only by an accounting exercise which has a flaw in it that I've been promoting. It all boils down to how you measure something like wind energy accurately. Denmark is the biggest producer of wind turbines in the world. The company Vestas makes them, and a lot of their enthusiasm is based on the fact that they're exporting these, and these are creating jobs. That doesn't mean that those jobs are sustainable. Howard Hayden is a senior US physicist, and he made the comment that little country Denmark, famous for its windmills, they don't make much energy, they sell them to suckers. So who's right and who's wrong? The high penetration of wind turbines and interconnection should serve as an example for Ireland. And generally, West Denmark has about 19% wind penetration, whereas East has 13%, and that boils down to about 15%. But I'm not entirely sure if that's an adjusted figure. I believe that they have more windmills. It's actually probably up to close to us, about the 21%. Anyway, they have a lot of windmills, but the main point is they have them longer than we have. Now, interconnection. Denmark is interconnected with Norway, who have 68% hydropower. Denmark has none. Sweden has 30%, and they're interconnected with them, hydropower. And Germany has 28% hydropower. Now, we're now going to use a number of statistical reviews, and one of them is the British Petroleum Statistical Review of World Energy in 2008. And one of the things they look at is the rankings of dependability on fossil fuel. And in the case of Denmark, they're the 13th most dependent country in the world on fossil fuel. The USA, they're the 13th most dependent country in the world on coal. The USA is the 17th. When it comes to oil, they're the 15th most dependent, and the USA is the 29th most dependent. Ireland is the 5th most dependent. Comes to natural gas, Denmark is the 37th more dependent, and the USA is the 41st most dependent, and Ireland is the 29th most dependent. The USA is 13% dependent on nuclear, and neither Ireland nor Denmark use nuclear. They don't actually use it in their generation. Non-fossil fuel in that review refers to things like garden water plants, water power plants in places like India where they have a lot of that. It doesn't apply to wind. So you see here that Denmark is heavily dependent on these three fossil fuels. In the case of coal, 26% of its primary energy, that's all its energy, comes from coal. 51% is oil, and 22% is natural gas. So the USA is actually outperforming Denmark in its reliance on fossil fuel, and it has less wind turbines, and much less per population than Denmark. So the Danish government's report on primary energy, and this is one of the very important statistics. In 1981, now there was no windmills we're talking about in 1981, when you use their primary energy converted to million tons per day, it amounted to 18.2 million tons per day. They have 5,200 turbines. That's by a report in the Sunday Times last year. So 18.2 million tons a day. Primary energy. This is the Danish government statistic. Now, They tell us from Denmark that 3 of their nuclear plants are running, but that they only use them for research. They don't want to be seen to be producing nuclear energy. They also tell us that they have 13 conventional plants. That's what they told me anyway. Okay. Now, primary energy, we've seen before that in the case of 1981, it was 18.2. It's now 18.1. No reduction. 0.1. No reduction. And that's in million tonnes. There's the first little indication of what the windmills are doing over that long period. They're doing nothing. Now, barrels of oil equivalent is a standard measure to measure anything. You could measure turf or timber in barrels of oil equivalent. It's not as intense. You need more turf to equate to a barrel of oil. But it's a way of measuring. Now, in 1981, Denmark used 365,000 barrels of oil equivalent in primary energy fossil fuels per day. And in 2007, it used 363,000. So those two figures are virtually the same. There's no worthwhile change. The change is derisory, really small. Now that's barrels of oil a day. So that's the point there. Here now are two separate, two indications of whether windmills are doing anything. Between that long period, they are not making any contribution to the saving of fuel at all. Now we go to coal imports. Denmark has no coal. It imports all its coal. And if you use barrel of oil equivalent, in 1999, now bear in mind this is 1999, this is not too long ago, they were using 94,400 barrels of oil equivalent of coal per day. And in 2007, it was the exact same, 94,400. No change whatsoever. It was exactly the same. So that's Energy Information Denmark data. We go for the same period again, that 1999 to 2007, and it's picked because in that period wind power increased 136%. So the barrels of oil equivalent of wind power, that's what it could produce if the wind blew all the time, in this period, in 1999, was 3 billion. And in 2007, it was 7 billion. So it went up. It went up over double the amount of wind power in the system. They really went mad for wind power. And as we see, we're getting no saving there at all. Now this is a little blip here that was reported that the grid burned 50% more fuel in 2007 than it did in 2005. But that was examined, and the result of that was that 2006 was a dry year in Norway, and 2007 was wet, and therefore they were able to import the hydropower. So now if you look at Denmark production of oil, it started drilling extensively in the North Sea. This is the country that tells us they're green. Between 1981 and 2007, oil production increased from 15,000 barrels per day to 314,000 barrels of oil a day. That's a 2,000% increase, and that's from the Danish energy data. Now riddle me that. Gas production was nil in 1989, and in 2007 it's 900 cubic feet per day. I understand that's quite a lot. So gas and oil kind of go together. In 2008, the Danish government took 7.1 billion US dollars equivalent taxes from its own drilling of oil and gas. In 2007, oil and gas equated to 164,000 barrels of oil equivalent, whereas wind was 11,800. Total hydrocarbon consumption, that's everything, was 572,400 barrels of oil equivalent per day. So when you level that against wind only formed 148%, 1 part in 48, and we get a very similar result in Germany. The Danish Energy Agency website will show you this. The Danes have the exact same reliance on fossil fuel as the United States. This is its production of electricity. This is wind. This is coal, natural gas and oil. Look at the small amount of wind. Look at that. It's really irrelevant. This is 50,000 and this is 300,000. But without going into the figures too much, does that not tell it all? Wind is virtually nothing. And if you divide this, take this as a half an inch, and all of these together are 32 inches. Now there are 5,200 turbines. Just divide 32 into 0.5, you get 1.6 as the contribution for wind. Sorry, 1.56. My figure is 1.6, which is almost identical. This is coming up all the time. The contribution for wind at moderate levels is only 1.6%. Now that's from the Danish Energy Data Statistics 2007. Now that should help to prove the case. This is hotly denied by the pro-wind energy people. Now you, as a jury member, will say, you decide this. There's the facts produced by the very country that's telling us this. Now the Danish Centre for Political Studies in 2009 said about Denmark's wind industry, wind saves neither fossil fuel nor CO2 emissions. This is rubbish by the wind industry too. It is they also advised the United States, a strong US wind expansion will not benefit the overall economy. It will entail substantial cost to consumers and industry, and wind turbine owners, shareholders, and people employed in the sector and the landowners, they're the only ones who will benefit. In other words, the only people to benefit is vested interests. In most other things, at least if you have a bakery, someone eats the bread and benefits they may pay for it. In this case, nobody benefits, only those involved in the industry. Now, David White, an expert, wrote in the Utilities Journal, it's a booklet about power, that only 3% of Denmark's electricity came from wind in 2003. And he also said that 84% of it was exported at a loss. And my figures and inquiries reveal that the price they get for the wind energy is only 26% of the proper price they get for other energy, or the proper market price. That's 24%. Now, the Copenhagen News, as quoted in the Wall Street Journal, gave the contribution of Danish wind turbines in 1999 at 1.7, again remarkably close to my 1.6. Fred Verdestein reported that 70.3% of its wind energy was exported at a loss. 70.3. I believe at times they're giving it away for nothing because the supply and demand doesn't correlate. The Danes consume 21% more power. That has to be said. They have more electricity being consumed, 21% in that period. Population is flat, so it's a great example that way. Electricity prices are very high. Now don't forget, in this 21% power over that period, there would have been conservation measures. People would have more lagging in their houses and conservation, etc. So that has to be taken into account too. Now the Centre for European Political Studies carried out an examination of Denmark's prices for electricity and found them to be above 5 other countries and double that of France in Europe. The European Environment Agency said that Denmark was 18% short of its CO2 targets in 2010. So where is the saving? 1999 to 2006, emissions increased 2.1%. The per capita, the amount of carbon CO2 produced per person is equal, if not greater than most countries. There's no saving. It's 13 tonnes per person. Now we know well, if they were saving carbon, they'd be bragging about it. I'm sure everyone accepts that. They're not bragging about it because it's not happening. This is all a myth. Now the International Energy Agency said that in 1990 the amount of emissions from Denmark was 50.8 billion tonnes, and in 2007 it was 50.7. It's gone up slightly. No saving. There's the figure again, 50.6, 50.7. No saving. No conventional plant has ever been shut down because of these windmills. Energy Net Denmark Environment Report. I believe this is on the internet. CO2 emissions from generation declined slightly in 2007. Now this is from electricity generation. There was a wee dip. This was not due to wind power. It was a wet year in Nordic regions with massive hydropower. So it was the fact that there was more rain in Norway and Nordic countries that meant that their CO2 emissions declined. It had nothing to do with wind, according to the Energy Net Denmark. Emissions levels for 2007 followed the general trend of low emissions during wet years. But you see, they try and tell us that it's wind. This is the deceit and the lies that we're being told. Denmark sees higher levels of emissions during dry years. So this shows our interconnection. It's not that interconnection is improving Denmark. It's that without it, the wind power would sink them. If they turned off the conventional plant, they'd be in the dark, and the connection it helps. So in Ireland's case, we don't have a country with massive hydropower to link to. So it doesn't really apply to us. This is simply the production of oil in that country. Look at how it goes up. Since 1981 to 2007, there's 100, 200, 300 and 400. So look at the way it's gone up there. I mean, they're exporting oil. So this country is not a green country by any standard. Now, interconnection is helping to keep the lights on. I have that with high taxes and high fuel. Interconnection probably does help to reduce the price a bit because it's so high there that by getting it in a bit cheaper helps. So it's due to hydro. It's no benefit to interconnection, and it's a different profile to Ireland altogether. So don't be fooled by people telling you about interconnection. Even in Denmark, if they just did away with the windmills and did away with interconnection, prices would immediately come down and they'd be just as green. Now, I asked for a member of my association to get me a family household bill, and I got one very close to my own, and let's compare it. There was 576 units over 3 months, and I adjusted this to deal with the currency and the billing period difference. So there's a bit of maths involved. I won't go into them here. The basic price per unit was 576 units at 0.056. That's 5.6 cents a unit. It's about 14 here, so that's real low. So what they're doing is they're bringing down the basic price. So if our government rings Denmark, oh, our energy is only 5.6. What a total piece of misinformation. What a lie. That adds up to 32 euros for the basic price. Very cheap. A power subscription goes on that already of 4 euros or 2, and VAT goes on that, bringing it to 9, bringing the total amount of the bill to 43.35, very low. Now look what happens. They now put in this payment for distribution and taxes. Now bear in mind, so far our price is 32, adjusted for taxes and all, 43.35. So look now what they're bringing forward. We bring forward the 43.35. Payment for distribution and taxes. Transport of electricity. We get this in our bill already. 21.548. Public service obligation levy is almost identical to ours. This is needed for the windmills. But it's not only. It's only one of the things that needed. Network subscription 21.73. What's that about? Power tax 47.80. It's bigger than the total unit price with taxes and levy that's above in the first heading. 47.80. Energy saving tax 4.78. As if this was going to affect when you have a tax of 47.80. Additional tax on power introduced on the 1st of the 1st 2011, proving that they're moving up energy. This is what we're going to see on our bills every year or 6 months more, and they'll invent new taxes and they'll tell us it's not affecting the price of electricity. That's 3.017. VAT on all of that is 26.82. So now the unit price of power with its taxes and all in Denmark is 32. The total charges is 108.21. Look at this. VAT on all of this is 35.82, bringing the total to 179.36. Total less VAT, which is really more objective, is 143.54. Grand total for Ireland, if you adjust this now for my energy bill, in the very same situation, it'll be 136.18. So if you take the Danish unit price, including VAT, now this is when you divide the total and get a unit price and put VAT. In other words, just divide the total bill by the number of units. It's 0.311, it's 31 cents a unit. That's about 38 cents. If you take the VAT out of it, it's 24.9, it's 25 cents with no VAT. So the basic price per unit by a simple dividing is 25 cents, right? In Ireland, including the standing charge, the PSO on the VAT, it's 23.6 per unit. And if you get rid of the VAT, it's 20.82. So look at getting rid of the VAT. The price in Ireland is 25, and the price in Denmark is 25, and the price in Ireland is 21. So it's higher than us, and we still have a lot of windmills, but we haven't as many as them. And not alone that, but that's one of the highest bills in the world. So If we just measure it here, Ireland, including VAT, is 75% that of the Danes for our overall electricity charge, the basic what the consumers faced with. And excluding VAT, we're 83.4% of the Danes. So we're quite low in that. So leave out the VAT, we're 83.4% the cost of Denmark. Irish price per unit here on my bill is 14.1 cent. Whereas the Denmark price is 0.056. In other words, it's 14 as compared to 5.6 cent. And this is how they fool us into thinking that the price is cheaper. They don't tell us about that on charges. As I said, they have 5,200 turbines, and Ireland has about 900 turbines, maybe a bit more now, probably about 10 at the moment. And this statistic is from late 2010. So the income, the bill was from late 2010. It was actually December, January, about 2010. So the main point to remember is that income from Denmark, a lot of this wind is to export turbines to us, to tie us in, to get money from manufacturing. It's the same as our government are always on about jobs. This is how they're hoping to create jobs, by selling us turbines that are not working in their own country. So that's the hidden secret of Denmark. And by the way, a survey recently suggested that the Danes are among the happiest people in the world. So could it be that they know that they're fooling us? I don't know. But anyway, just to sign off. Who said there's something rotten in the state of Denmark? And could history be repeating itself? Thank you very much. We'll see you back for clip 6 next. Thank you. Bye.